Okay, so today,
Welcome.
Our monster is feedback, and
Feedback monster.
We've invited a good friend of mine who I've known for years. His name is Steven Sczepanik, and he's a senior designer at Headspace, focusing on design systems. So it's a really cool talk with him about this monster, especially how he's gone from in-house to agency, back to in-house where he is at Headspace now, how he's progressed through his career from designer to senior designer. He has a really good perspective and a good head on his shoulders when it comes to feedback. And Bryan, you were saying you felt like, you think some of that maybe came from like the music days, his time spent playing bands, but maybe even more so from being an artist, painting and doing other types of mediums like that.
Yeah, I mean, so in our chat with him, we definitely get into kind of his perspective on how to deliver feedback, how to receive feedback, some of his experience with feedback that isn't good, some feedback when it's working great, and sort of ask, he was a musician, he still is a musician. How did his work as a musician inform his relationship with feedback? Because, when you're in a band, you have to work together to create something. And I think it's similar with any art. And so we talk about his experience with feedback. And then after that, we visit and hang out with some of our favorite monsters right now. I'm not going to spoil them right now. Just know that this episode is officially sponsored by Prey, which is on Hulu. I'm kidding. It's not officially sponsored. I don't want to get sued, but everybody should go see that. Jon, anything else?
Yeah, I just think it is really cool to hear from someone that you can tell has grown a lot. And I say that because I've known him for a long time throughout his career, but I think it even just comes through. He has a very mature perspective when it comes to feedback. There was a moment where I was almost getting at a situation where I knew he had experienced someone that, would consistently give feedback that was not just hard to hear, but, it was just negative. It wasn't constructive at all. And I kind of pressed him a little bit about that. But he didn't even get worked up about it. He kind of went straight into like, well, I've learned that, there might just be something really good in there that I can pull out of it. And I was just like, wow. I don't even know
why that is.
I'm not mature yet, but
well, we've decided he's just a sweet boy.
He's a sweet boy.
He's just a sweet boy. So
and what's funny is Bryan said that after Steven signed off, he just goes, Steven's a sweet boy. And Steven actually, my wife and I have been married for about 10 years. And so we've known each other for almost 12 years now. And Steven and his girlfriend at the time actually set up my wife and I on like a blind date. And so we met like that. So Steven was responsible for my relationship in some ways. But I was talking to my wife who has known him, for a long time. And right before we signed on to the podcast, we were both just like, Steven's a sweet boy. And it sounds like Bryan echoed that as well. So the consensus is he's a sweet boy.
So I think with that, let's just get into our chat with sweet boy Steven.
Here we go. We're back. We're recording. We're doing it.
Oh my God. So
we had like 30 minutes of figuring this out.
Oh my God, Steven. Thank you for your grace.
Yes.
Of course.
Patience.
Sir.
Technology, am I right? Like, honestly.
Good Lord. I am literally updating my OS after this.
Yes.
I'm just always so afraid of I have all these different files and I have to do the comb through it, make sure it's all backed up in the places I need it.
Yeah.
I'm just fitting in excuses.
Yeah.
So it's just
I mean, my huge one is just my browser tabs. Like even the ones that I have pinned, I'm just like, I don't even want to restart and update because what if pinned ones go? Like
totally.
It's like a solid. Do you ever remember playing solitaire on the desktop? When you get solitaire, it's be like
yeah.
It's just
that's what it feels
tabs.
like. Yeah.
You want each little. You're like, but But if I lose a tab, I lose a part of my personality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it takes you a week just to catch up and remember what your members were even talking about, what you were even doing.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And for everyone out there who's trying to figure out what we're talking about, we tried running a meeting, this podcast meeting, through Riverside.fm, which we love, but for some reason was not working with Brian's computer. And it's probably because he had to update his OS. So we're on Zoom now. We're recording this through Zoom, and trusty old Zoom.
My machine was not up to the task, wasn't performing.
Yeah,
but tired.
You're back. You're energized.
And we missed a little bit of the intro of how Steven and I met, which we just now realized was about 20 years ago. So that's kind of crazy.
So do you guys feel old when you say that word 20 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's okay. Like I think I'm okay growing old. It feels
same.
Good.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. But
I've had a few friendships that old, and it's just like when you start saying those words, you're like 20 years ago.
Yeah. That's crazy. And we haven't talked in probably
a couple years, maybe.
At least
in person, man. I don't know.
I mean, we've maybe texted like a couple times here and there, but like, it's been a while. So, but we met playing music, and I want to hear, and this Brian can kind of learn, like what has your what's your history playing music? What does that look like?
Yeah, totally. Well, I started I was actually talking about this a couple of days ago, but the first experience of like watching a local band play live was Keeping Ellis, and that was like Rob Monroe, Jim, and then the rest of the band, Damien, and all that. So like at Santa Teresa High School, that's where I went to high school, watching them play live at lunch, and I wasn't even into it. I was mostly into hip hop and rap at the time, so I didn't really like absorb just any rock or indie rock or pop rock or anything. So I was just watching them play live and just watching them go ape shit, just the way that they do. And I was so impressed, it made me want to start playing music and like pick up a bass and just start learning and absorbing everything that's, indie rock, metal, all the good stuff, but also just like curious about what the network and what the community was like within local music in San Jose specifically. So big shout out to Keeping Ellis and those guys back in the day. But pretty much like incredible. I started, I got into like my first band with Jesse Sotelo and other cool dudes, and we just ended up continue playing music as much as possible. I think Fighting Jacks was like our huge inspiration during that time. So we ended up, playing with a bunch of local bands and then just getting into the scene, and then met Jon at something. Yeah, I kind of forgot when that was.
So, Steven, I have a question for you, and I'm going to ask this of you too, Jon. So I'm not a musician. I don't have any of that skill set. Obviously, I love music, but I'm not a musician. How did it feel like that first time being on stage?
Ooh, so nerve-wracking. It was.
Yeah, what was your first performance? Can you remember?
Oh, maybe
give us the deets.
I think it was like for probably a birthday party at some random like shop or whatever for like a bunch of friends. But and I think maybe another first couple shows was like at a church or something. There were always these like random venues in San Jose that like Armando's
pizza parlors. Armando's. And
like Chemical Freezone was probably like, I don't know, once you hit to Campbell Gaslighter, you're like, all right, now I'm actually at a venue on stage. And
Cactus Club.
Wow. But
deep cut.
Deep cut. I think once that was probably, it was just those random venues was kind of like the start, really. A lot of churches for sure.
Yeah.
I remember that. That's even consistent. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I remember my first show was a band called it was a pop punk outfit called Neural, Nural.
Awesome.
And it was at a church as well, and they were
Mhm.
they were a secular. Actually, I think the lead singer was a Christian, but it was a secular band.
Mhm.
And I remember going there, and it sounded really good. Like the acoustics are great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that
it's
was a
just-
wave, man, of like Christian music scene.
Yeah, and then it
That was
was
like a big thing for a while.
the punk, the screamo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. It's
God,
funny.
So much screamo.
a lot of screamo.
Are you
Just-
playing music today? Are you still playing?
I kind of took a break for the past, definitely during the pandemic, but
Mhm.
even like a year before that. But more recently, over I think a couple of weekends ago, I supported one of my friends. He has a band called the Builders and the Butchers, and he just did an acoustic show at
Cool.
this place called Subtle Lodge, which is right next to Subtle Lake. It's like probably 3 hours south of Portland, but he wanted me to support him and play bass while for like 5 songs while he was playing acoustic. So that was a couple of weeks ago, and it was pretty magical actually. The whole
Cool.
environment, just everyone on
Yeah.
grass, just like on the field in front of us, and the lake was behind us, and the sun was setting.
Yeah.
It was good. It was chill.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It makes
And
me
so,
wanna get it back into music for sure. Yeah.
dude, totally. I know I get the itch constantly to do it all the time.
Well, John, you just drop albums like no one's business.
I know.
Yeah, but like it's difference between doing that and then like playing live. And everything I make is like by myself. So I am trying to figure out a way to do some of that more electronic stuff where I have like a track and then I can just play guitar and sing with it, and like maybe pair it with like a projection, like video sort of thing. So it's like a kind of a visual experience. But yeah, it's taking some work. I'm working on it. We'll see where it goes.
So
I'll come up to Portland and play.
Yeah, you should.
So okay, so I'm going to tie this back to music, but it's got me thinking. So we're here today tackling the monster known as feedback.
Mhm.
How we give it, when it's too much feedback, when it's not enough feedback, when the feedback sucks, how we receive feedback, just our whole relationship with feedback in the workplace. But as y'all are talking about music, has me thinking about the experience of being in a band. And it's like a really fun group project. And it's like the first time, honestly, outside of like a high school group project
Mhm.
where you work collaboratively with people. And even that requires a little bit of feedback. Like, is there anything you learned back in the band days around feedback before you even got in the workforce that you've taken with you or just even thought about?
You know what? I want to say that relationship with bandmates and like just practicing and creating music is actually pretty similar to us in the design industry, or just,
Mhm.
providing feedback or taking feedback with what we do professionally. It's now that I'm thinking back to it, like just those moments, just sitting in a room with the first couple dudes I was in a band with was pretty much the same thing, where you definitely want to stay open-minded and hear everyone's opinion and where a song could potentially go, because there's no right way or wrong way. And sometimes opinions outweigh other opinions. Sometimes that creates a couple arguments here and there, but I think overall, like there does come to a point where there is agreement of what does sound good, because we're all outputting that same music, that same vibe and energy and song. So we all want to agree what is going into that process and what that output is. So it's pretty one-to-one, actually, I want to say.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And what? So currently you're at Headspace,
Right.
but kind of even how you got there. You worked for like the water company or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Like you got your start. And tell us what that was like, kind of your just first getting into design and kind of bringing some of that experience of like being in a band. Because I felt that too, like playing music. Once you start to get into a team and you're designing, it's like, wow, this is very similar. So what was that like started from there, and what were the places that you worked at leading up to where you're at now, being at Headspace?
Yeah, totally. So I took a break from college for a while and actually started at the water company as like a receptionist, just to kind of like get out of, I had many warehouse gigs before that, so I just kind of wanted to get out of the warehouse scene and just like try something new. But I overheard at the water company in the design department that they were looking for another designer, and I was, at the time, I dabbled with Photoshop and Illustrator and whatnot, but I didn't really know the programs as much as I said I did. Of course, fake it till you make it.
How we all started.
Yeah, totally. So, but the only way I could actually join the design team was to be a student intern. So I'd have to go back to college to get my degree or focus on that degree in order to join that team. So I ended up going back to college, graduating, getting my BA in design.
Cool.
And then not long after the water company, because what I did mostly there was just print, pretty much, like in-house reports and all that stuff. So it was exciting for me, but also looking back at it, it was, it's very necessary to learn print, but also I'm very happy I'm not in it anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyways, yeah, just not long after, Jon and I, we met somehow at some point during that transition of me from the water company into this other small boutique studio in Campbell or somewhere in San Jose. And we started to do interactive demos pretty much for like CEOs like Cisco and Brocade and like tech companies to really just focus and on their vision work to really sell like what they could be doing with their company and their tools and features. So we really just made, I remember we always said, between our designers and engineers, we made fake shit look cool.
It's funny because I don't even think it was called product design then.
No.
Like that term was like, what? But that's literally what we were doing. We were doing like prototypes. That's basically, we were creating prototypes. That was it.
Exactly. And sorry, back up, but that Jon was already working at that studio, and he got me to kind of enter that world. So I was there for like probably, I don't know, it was a long time, too long. But ended up going after that into my first agency gig called Idean, which is a Finnish-based agency located in Palo Alto. They had a bunch of offices and throughout the States. So I was there for about a year and some change. And actually that was a weird transition because that was my first agency gig, but also that was my first dip into product world as well, because for like majority of that time that I was there at Idean, I was actually planted on the Nook app, the Barnes and Noble's Nook app, department and team to help with their UX team to work on their design system and work on Android, iOS with their QA team and engineers to just pretty much work on their features. So that was kind of a mixture between agency and product.
Going back a second, when you're talking about design systems, just kind of cluing folks in who don't really know, when you're describing design systems, what are you describing? What are you talking about?
In simple terms, it's pretty much the complete holistic experience for UI library, including patterns and also just like contribution model of how pretty much it's a kit where all engineers and designers can use all the tools like components like buttons and radio buttons and all that stuff, all the way to complex patterns, which are just combined components, and also just rules and guidelines on how to use not only the UI library, but also the branding toolkit as well, and how everything can continue to be a cohesive experience moving forward. So there's a lot of there's much more than just a UI kit that goes into design systems. It's pretty robust, actually.
It's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of moving parts easier to move.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good way of actually describing it.
Sum it up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Did you, when you got into, bouncing between agency world and in-house world, like what are some of the differences that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think I didn't really notice the differences in what I was dealing with at the time of that first agency gig and that first product experience. It was more so when I fast forward, moved up to Portland and joined Instrument, which is a creative agency up here. And I worked there for about like 3.5 years. But that was I want to say that was actually first real experience into agency work and the world, and actually working with end-to-end projects with tight deadlines and that whole experience. And with all those projects, working on strategy with researchers and going through the whole design process, and then even at the very end doing development handoff. I did dev handoff for almost every project, which was actually more my introduction into design systems, and also just, again, the whole overall process with agency in general. But so going from Instrument, I wanted to go back into product for some time. I was just kind of thinking about it, how I enjoy my time working on Nook for Barnes and Nobles, and it was just a very interesting dynamic. It was very systematic. It was just definitely a different type of thinking. So with my skill set, my experience with agency world, I kind of wanted to change it up and go into product. So I ended up working at Better Mortgage for about a year after Instrument, and that was my job before I went on to Headspace. But I pretty much ran the whole, or helped run the whole design systems team for that company, and built it from scratch throughout that year.
Cool.
And then
Cool.
now I'm here at Headspace running the design system over here as well.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So go ahead.
No, how long have you been at Headspace now?
It'll be a year in October, actually.
Oh, nice, dude.
Congratulations.
Birthday boy.
I don't understand, by the way, how is it September 17th when we're recording this? It feels like September's been 2 days long. Is that anybody else?
Kind of, yeah. It is weird.
Yeah.
Like August felt long.
You know why?
Why?
I don't know. For me, I feel like it's just been in the past couple days where it feels like it went from like all of a sudden the sun was like, I'm gonna go down earlier. Today's the day.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's always that point in mid-September where you feel the difference and you're like, it's 7 and it's dark. What happened? Like it just sneaks up on you.
Totally.
That always happens to me.
Yeah, I don't. Steven, where do you live? Do you still live in Portland, or
I still live in Portland? Yeah. My wife and I, we've been up here for about 6+ years now. Yeah.
Rad.
But
I'm in Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz and Portland share a similar DNA.
I love Santa Cruz. I love it. Yeah.
We have a little bit of Portland, and then just like a little splash of like SoCal coastal San Diego. I don't know. It's weird. Interesting. So you're at Headspace, and you're the senior product designer doing design systems.
That's right. Yep.
Over there.
Yep. Yeah, totally. And it's been a really good experience. Even my experience with Better Mortgage, not to get into the tornado that came after I left. I'm sure you've heard about the whole falling out of that company, but if you haven't, go ahead and research it. But that was a really good experience, kind of really understanding how much I wanted to hone in on design systems in general, and like really work on that craft and work towards something that not only to be proud of, but also like I think design systems is such an evolving part of the industry it's just constantly growing. Things are changing. There's so many new tools that are constantly making our process even more efficient.
Yeah.
not only on building the products, but also helping us build a better design system as well.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. So I had a really great experience on just like learning the ins and outs and like really understanding what I wanted as a designer and you know, a leader at least in that space where I wanted to head to. And what I did with After Better was pretty much I wanted to look for something that a product that was, you know, helping people. I kind of wanted to get out of the mortgage world. It was kind of a stepping stone into product, but Headspace was just it was I've actually wanted to be at Headspace for a couple of years even prior to joining, and it's been amazing. Yeah.
Cool. I was curious, you know, kind of moving through your career, being a senior now, and you've had some senior roles prior to that. What was it like moving from designer to senior designer? And with the topic of feedback in mind, how did that play a role in that transition?
Yeah, totally. I think feedback definitely played a huge role. So transitioning from designer to senior was, you know, I feel like there were at least maybe the last couple of years that I was at Instrument where I knew I was doing senior work. I knew I was leading projects the way a senior, you know, should be leading a project. So I feel like I was already doing the work. It was just a title thing that needed to really happen. And it wasn't, it was just more of like, all right, great, you're officially now a senior, but I feel like I've been doing senior work for majority of my time at Instrument before I was actual senior. So, but I think feedback and going, you know, getting feedback and providing feedback to other designers and other disciplines on our team was really huge for my growth as an individual and a designer to understand like the type of feedback that I should be providing, the type of environment, safe environment that we should actually be, you know, providing each other to give that awesome constructive feedback and just safe space in general. So I think it took, I was already doing the work of a senior, but I think I still needed to learn and grow as an individual on how to give feedback and how to also take in feedback. I think that is a certain aspect of a designer or just what we do that a lot of people don't understand is a skill set within itself. And it's something that you need to continue to grow and really shape it's like therapy, honestly. Like you're going into these design crits and you want to really be empathetic towards the other people that are sharing their work. You want to like really praise them and champion for them for what they've done, but then also at the same time, if you're seeing areas of improvement, you want to really provide that feedback in a positive way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like in those moments where you felt like it wasn't a safe space and you felt like, okay, maybe this isn't actually even constructive, you know, and how did that contrast in a way where you were able to eventually see, okay, this is how it should feel, even though it's constructive, where it's I'm not doing something right and I'm getting feedback about it, but this feels like it's the way it should be done. So what was it like when you felt like it was done the way it shouldn't be done?
Yeah, I mean, I think there definitely was. I think it really depends on, there wasn't like a specific company on, you know, one, I had a really great experience over here at this company, but didn't over here. I think it really depends on the characters that you have within those meetings. And it was very obvious. At least for me, when I was a designer, I didn't know how to maybe take the feedback or even provide it back, or how to communicate what I was really, you know, thinking during that time and selling my designs. There were certain points early on in my career that there are toxic moments of, you know, whether it's an engineer that just like really wants to shit on your designs and really doesn't want to, you know, either build it the right way, or like there's so many technical limitations that maybe I didn't understand it as a designer at that point, of like how to really maneuver the designs to also be, you know, take account for other people's, you know, perspectives of how it should be built. So I think early on, taking some of that feedback, it could have felt toxic, or I could have taken things personally because I didn't understand from their perspective what they were getting at during that moment.
Yeah.
And I think for my growth going, working throughout the years and being in those situations and really working closely and collaborating with different characters and mindsets, that I understood how to really navigate those conversations, navigate certain characteristics, to not take anything personal, and also really understand where those people are coming from, whether it's, professionally or a technical aspect of it, or maybe it's like a business goal that was unaware of at that time, and really try to absorb everyone else's perspective. Moving forward, I think it wasn't like a quick contrasting like transition of like this is
magical, like leveling up in an RPG, like, oh, now I'm an enlightened feedback person.
Right.
I reached level 40.
Yep. And honestly, like we're all still learning today. Like it's never gonna be this like perfect puzzle that we can put together at the end of every design crit or conversation. There's going to be constantly new, ideas, new opinions, that we're all juggling together. It's just a matter of how you maneuver and navigate through that and work together and make sure it's not, feeling like a hostile environment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's this journey of like, when you start out and you're doing this kind of work, and I'm speaking as a writer, not necessarily a designer and somebody in design systems, but there's a lot of self-identification with the work, especially in the beginning, which generates an enormous amount of insecurity. And when you receive, or in the early days, you know what, maybe even today, if there's somebody you really respect and you really want to please, maybe you can even briefly revert back to this old way of being. But when somebody, there's just that self-identification. So if somebody identifies what's not working, what you hear is, well, I'm bad at my job and I should just go walk into traffic. And
I totally agree.
Clearly.
I think imposter syndrome is like a constant thing that we will fight day in, day out. It's not a thing that we'll solve. And if there's something that I am proud of, and I'm getting like constructive feedback, I'll feel the jab, but like I'm not gonna position myself where I'm like feeling defensive. It's like, I've only like explored maybe 5 directions that I thought were really good, but you're bringing in different, characters with like so much experience and they're thinking about this one thing in so many different ways. You have to be really accepting with where they're coming from.
It's that maturation is very much like, okay, no, it's really about like, how do we get the best work here? And I need everybody's perspectives to get there. But it can be quite a journey. And then hearing and articulating and responding to everybody's perspectives, selecting which perspective you're really prioritizing as you reiterate, like
I think what's interesting is when I first kind of asked that question, I was definitely giving like free rein to be like, tell us about those moments where feedback was bad. But I think that's what shows, like, as you kind of move through your career and you move into more of those senior roles, like you were just like, well, yeah, it was like this, but then I grew and I realized that, it's almost like you're at a point now where, I don't think any of us are necessarily, impervious to feedback, but you're like at a place where you can look back at stuff that was really challenging and go, yeah, but it helped me grow. And I think that's really cool because we get to a point where you realize you're never going to be able to avoid even the most quote unquote destructive feedback. Right. Like it feels destructive.
And wait, really quick, let's like break that down. What is destructive feedback?
Well, we were, I don't know if you have it up in front of you, Brian. I'm trying to remember. I don't have it up at the moment, but there's that chart that I think a lot of us have seen, and we're going to post in our Instagram feed. So if you're listening to this at that point, it'll probably be there. But it's that chart where it shows what are the quadrants again?
This is all centered around radical
There's
candor.
the radical candor is
Right.
sort of the goal, right? Like
That's
you
the
want to
goal.
be totally like open about what you're trying to say. And in some ways, I think we're always trying to speak to that, but it doesn't always come out that way. And I think that's what the other 4 quadrants of this chart are speaking to. So one of the corners I know is ruinous empathy. And I can say, because that's something that I can fall in at times. I'm a bit of a softie, and I sometimes skirt around that radical candor that I need to be delivering to people. And that's not good. That doesn't help people grow. It doesn't challenge them. It doesn't push them. It's not being totally honest. And I think the problem is that for me, because I struggle with giving it that way, I think I expect it to come like that. So even when it's radical candor and it's really good feedback, sometimes I'm like, man, this person doesn't like me, or like, what's going on? And sometimes it is like delivered that way, where someone does come in and they're like, what's the other one that's like feels like really harsh, Brian? I don't know. What's that quadrant?
The other one is, we'll just,
yeah, well,
4 quadrants.
it was
Ruinous
illustrated.
candor, sorry, radical candor, that's the ideal, right? That leads to the most productive change when we're talking about feedback. Then there's ruinous empathy, which is operating from a space of ignorance. No change occurs there. There is manipulative insincerity, which is the result of mistrust.
Yeah.
Once again, no change. And then there's the one you're talking about, John. There is obnoxious aggression, which comes from a space of defensiveness. And there can be a little change there when we're talking about the work.
There, and that was one point I wanted to, and I'll stop talking, I promise. But that was a key point for me, and an interesting point of learning recently. And it kind of, I think it came from like our chief creative officer at YML, and he had this point of, and I might be misquoting him, but I feel like this is what he was getting at, was that the more aggressive version of feedback, he would prefer that to the ruinous empathy, because there is some change. And I think
got it.
But also, like, the better that we get at receiving feedback, you can at least pull that truth out of that. And you can go, okay, yeah, I understand they're just delivering it poorly. But they're saying something that might actually be really helpful, and it will change something, whether it's in us personally, which is always harder when someone's speaking to you, or if it's about specifically the work, like this work is lacking this. And I thought that was a really good point. And it's not that we should all like go, well, it's okay to do that. We should all be striving for radical candor, but it really shows how like ruinous empathy can be, it's kind of the worst, because there's no change. There's no challenge,
It's just like, oh, you just want to make the person feel comfortable.
Yeah, totally.
In the work and that can hurt the work. I think for me, one of the big things, I think my North Star when it comes to feedback is, does the person still feel excited and engaged to keep working on the project?
Totally.
Like if you, so many of the, especially when you're talking about aggression or being insincere, and like, it doesn't really motivate the person to keep iterating and keep working.
Yeah.
And if there's no desire to change and keep working, and that's I struggle with a lot of sort of defensive, aggressive feedback, because oftentimes it then motivates, it moves the person into a space of like fear and like, and then it affects the work. They don't feel like, free to
stagnant.
Release their little butterflies, and that's how I imagine work goes, right? You the butterflies come out.
Yeah, I mean, you would want that to happen.
Yeah.
I feel like there is like there should be a balance between, being empathetic, but also giving that radical candor, where it's like, say for an example of, I'm reviewing a designer's work, and and seeing all the different directions that and all the work that they put into it, you know, I think there's a level of praise that they should actually receive and just understand how positive all of the work that they have been doing, and really pull out all those details of like, oh, I really like that you did this way. I like that the motion's moving this way. The vertical rhythm of this page layout is solid, but did you think about this? Like, and you know, I think positioning.
So asking it as a question.
Yeah, totally. And not like projecting your own opinion right away. I think you'll probably, us all personally, will have like specific opinions that we know as we're looking at the work, like, this should be this should be look like that, this should actually say this, when really, like, how can we, you know, reposition that feedback and how we're delivering it, where we're actually asking, like you said, asking it as a question and having them answer back, and having them feel like ownership over what they just said, or over that topic, or that piece of feedback as well. So it sounds like they're actually like understanding, and also, I don't know, giving their perspective as well on the piece of feedback, and they're directing and driving the conversation as well. And it's just like, I think that's a good balance, is like really recognizing those you know, those areas that are very successful, but then just like really positioning the conversation to be very approachable, and not just like put up this wall, or have them put up this defensive wall of like, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's not worth it. I don't know.
One of the things I just heard when you're talking about that, two things stood out to me in your kind of feedback example is you're using I statements. Like, I feel as though this is how I'm feeling about this work. You're also specific. So those are two things. Sometimes I struggle. I was telling Jon about this. I'll struggle with feedback that's just like, especially if it's a group conversation. I'm going to be simple. This sucks, right? And what it does is it's creating an objective statement about the work,
right?
And kind of sets the tone. So, right. So then other people who want to chime in and talk about their subjective feelings, all of a sudden now we kind of have to address this idea that now it's objectively bad,
right?
Instead of each of us articulating our subjective experience with the work. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so much more helpful to be like, oh, this isn't connecting with me because XYZ, rather than this is just bad.
Yeah, totally. And also having, like, you know, the information to back that up of this isn't working. Say this color is not working with this other color, and then XYZ because of this color theory, and, you know, because of this research that we've done, you know, in the past months, like, we just know that this isn't working. And that's why it doesn't just suck. It's not working because it's just proven that we've already put the work into it. So, like, I think having information and having just ways of backing up, like, your subjective, or even, you know, your subjective opinion, I think there's ways of doing it where you need to have that concrete example.
Informed.
Totally.
But even like, kind of getting back to the asking, I think that's just such a powerful way to lead and to manage, and to be more collaborative, because it creates space. You know what I mean? It creates space, but it also, the idea of like, we have the answers.
Yeah.
And so
you think you have the answers. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, when you're working with someone on a project, and say you're the one giving feedback, like you said, when you're asking them, like, what do you think about this more? How did you get to that point with this design, or this element? You know, you're sort of acknowledging that, like, you have it inside of you to resolve it, and it might not be right, but I think you know what might need to be. You know what I mean? And that's like empowering. So it's a really cool way. Sometimes you do have to be a little bit more blunt, but like
Sure.
that's such a good like kind of first step into feedback. It kind of invites them into like that solution. But if they're not getting it, then you can kind of move more to that radical candor. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it gives that open dialogue to, I mean, there's probably certain things that also the one, you know, you giving the feedback, there's probably certain little details that you are not seeing that person was seen during that process. And I think it's having that open dialogue will surface more of that information and context of like, what were they thinking when they created this direction or that direction? Like, I think it's just kind of fuels the conversation to like really unlock all those little pieces.
Yeah.
And maybe at a certain point, you're like, oh, you know what? My feedback doesn't make sense anymore because like I get where they're coming from. Like they're backing it up with these, you know, pieces of, you know, context. And
you get I the other thing too, that line of questioning is just like, you know, when you said, you know, walk me through what you're thinking. If the work isn't quite there yet, when somebody's able to kind of walk you through their process and what they were thinking, when you understand where they're coming from, you can help guide them to the quote unquote better work.
Right.
Yeah.
When you understand where they're coming from. Questions is such a valuable tool when it comes to feedback.
One thing too, like I really like that we're talking about this from like the leadership side, and I hope anyone out there at Headspace listening to this guy needs to be promoted to lead. I would like to sign that petition verbally right now. I hope you get a promotion soon, because it's, you know, that moment in Swingers where Vince Vaughn jumps up on the table and he's like, "My boy's all grown up. My boy's all." That's how I feel right now. I feel like, man, I haven't talked to you in this context in a while. I'm like, man, Steven's like, it's all grown up.
It's all grown up, yeah.
I'm stoked. It's just really cool to hear you like speak with. That's such a cool. I'd be on your team. I'd want you to be my manager. This is awesome.
There's a cool Headspace is a great team. Leslie Witt's over there, right?
Yeah.
She's fucking a force. She is incredible.
Yeah. Our whole team, like the design team, is kind of ridiculous. That it wasn't only the talent and like the pure genius that every individual has on the team, but also it was what really sold me on Headspace was not only, you know, the product itself, but the culture. Like that was, but not only the culture. I think I always kind of strive to find that culture that Instrument had and has, because it's just a unicorn. It's hard to get.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in the product world where everything is so cutthroat and you know, feedback is, you're gonna feel like you're an imposter.
Oh, and there's like political motivations.
Yeah, there's so many, you know, business goals and objectives, and it's hard to really sell an idea, or if you do, it takes 2 years to have it implemented. So it's like there's a lot of battling conversations and different perspectives for sure. But Headspace, not only the design team, but even the engineering team, the project, like everyone at the company really lived up to that expectation of culture that I had at Instrument. And it being in the product world, like it's kind of bonkers.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what do you feel like, you know, kind of flipping it now to being more of the receiver of feedback from the people you might work with or report into? I hate using that phrase, but I mean, you know, you're being managed by someone and someone's giving you feedback more than not. And maybe even like taking the analogy of like the fact that we pointed out we both have a Telecaster on the wall behind us right here. And then coming from the music days, like my image, and I think we might go this way, of the feedback monster is like kind of like a Guar looking monster who's just like raging with feedback, because I think when we think of feedback, that's like
a Guar?
Guar is?
No.
The band Guar?
Oh no, I don't.
Well, there are some things that Guar
It's
wears that we
fine.
probably won't incorporate into our
Yeah,
illustration, but it's like these monsters, metal monster gods that, are holding guitar, crazy looking guitars.
I'm
Anyway,
not a
so I
music boy.
picture
Hold on.
the feedback monster being like that with like this giant amp or like just sound waves coming out of the guitar. Because we think about when feedback is scary,
yeah,
it's like that. And I think the word feedback instantly kind of gives us that in our head. That's the monster form of feedback, not the positive form. So what
yeah,
is it like being on the receiving end, maybe thinking about like envisioning that monster
yeah.
kind of overpowering you?
Yeah, totally. I think the biggest thing for me personally is understanding what that sound wave of feedback feels like maybe in the first instance of receiving it. But I think how I've been able to mature as an individual and a designer in our industry is to understand and how to unlock the filtering mechanism between that large wall of sound and what's really important coming from that message, and not just receiving all of it as what it is, coming through as a scary, it's scary to receive feedback. It really is. Like, whether it's good or bad doesn't matter. It's still you're putting yourself out there, and it's really hard to take in. So I think I've definitely, and I'm still working on this, and I'm sure we all are, just like refining that aspect of it, of trying to filter out, the real message that's coming through.
Yeah. It's almost like
I
when you think about that guitar feedback, there are times where you're like, dude, like turn it down or figure it out, whatever you're doing. But there are other times you're like, dude, that sounds cool. Like when someone just I remember that band Slow from San Jose, SLOE, this amazing rock band that we just all like grew up listening to. They're a little bit older than us. They were such a good rock band. And I always remember just the way their amps were like just like tuned up and dialed in, they would get this feedback that was like cool sounding, just a little bit of that squeal. Everything was a little bit hot. And I think that for me is when feedback is, you get to that point where you're like, man, this is great. I want more. This is cool. Like it kind of reminds me of that, like it's loud and kind of crazy, but you like it. So I kind of see the metaphor going that way for me and like with what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. And I think to get to that level, it's first, I think it's just kind of setting that relationship up between you and the other people that you're working with, and gaining that trust. Because I think once that trust is gained, be as loud as you want with that feedback. Be as brutally honest as you want. And the fact that I trust you and I understand where you're coming from now, and who you are, as an individual or professionally, I want it. Yes, bring it on.
That is such God, that's a beautiful relationship when there's so much trust built up between two people or more, whatever. But like you just know there's nothing personal. It's like, let's just get into the work.
Totally.
And like I trust your perspective so much. You're going to be able to identify like what's not working or what is. But God, that's a really special relationship to have, those trusting dynamics that lead to just excellent feedback.
I think that's where it starts. And I think that's the huge difference that I've realized coming from the agency world to the product world, is that, I think working closely and collaborating with designers and your team on the agency and product side is still pretty similar. But with agency work, you're dealing with clients that, you're probably working on a whole website. Like we built the levi's.com in like 6 months or 7 months, which is very tight deadline. And we had to gain that trust right out the gate. So it's like, so we can have a very productive process to hit our deadlines. On the flip side, going on the product side, you are your own client, essentially. I mean, the consumer is, yes, your client overall, but you're working with your team, and essentially I think gaining that trust could be made a little bit easier, because it's not like like a client on the agency side, you won't see them for after 6 months, and it's like, you're out of my life, on to the next. No, you're working very closely with these people every day. You're literally talking to them through Slack every second of every day. So you want to really make sure that your trust is on point for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we actually went through our like slay, tame, love, and I feel like we've ended on this state of love when it comes to feedback. This is great. We're true to our monster talk format.
Nice.
I mean, feedback
Brian,
is.
did I cut you off, Brian? Were you going to say something?
No, I'm just talking to make sound, Jon.
Well, maybe because we just did talk about what that feedback monster will look like, it's a good segue into our favorite monsters at the moment. So I'm curious, Steven, have you given any thought to what your favorite movie, comic, whatever, anything? It could be just some, most of the time for Brian, it's animals. He'll pick like a badger or something like that to be his favorite.
No, sometimes animals.
Most of the time.
First of all,
but I love it. It's great.
Listen, badgers are amazing. They build
still going on badgers here.
I was actually talking about beavers, I think. It was a beaver lodge. I was talking about beaver lodges. They're quite amazing. Little designers. They're just amazing. Sorry, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Steven.
Yeah.
What's coming up for you when you say monster?
Well, I love monsters. I love horror movies. I love thrillers.
Yeah.
The first thing that came to mind was like Predator or Alien. Which one would I prefer most? And I think that's like a really good go-to. But more recently, I rewatched Cabin in the Woods. If you've
so good.
I have.
God, it's so
Chris
good.
Hemsworth, right?
Yeah.
Right, that's who you remember. Right.
Every time I rewatch it, I keep forgetting that he's in that movie as well.
Yeah. Drew Goddard, I think, directed that. I think.
Oh, okay.
So
I
good.
know. But
it's like a hilarious. Talk to us.
I was gonna say it might be spoiler alert for any listeners out there that haven't seen it. And I'll do my best not to spoil it all. But I want to say that the monster that I really find scary and appreciate is actually the big brother aspect of that whole movie, because they're essentially manipulating and puppeteering every monster experience in cinema, which is wild. They're actually the driving force for all the horror out there, which is wild.
That's a good answer. So this idea of that there's something carefully manipulating and moving the monsters, those that control the narrative around monsters,
right?
And what's deemed scary, what's deemed not.
Yep, totally.
Which is who gets to be scared, who doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in the end, clearly it's a self-destructive environment that they put themselves in, because it didn't, things don't work out here and there. But but I think that was rewatching that. It felt like I was watching it for the first time, because I was just blown away by how much power those people had.
Yeah, that's a great fucking movie. I love that movie. It's funny too. Yeah. Did y'all see? Sorry, Steven, go.
I'm curious on what your monsters currently are. Favorite monsters.
You go first, Brian.
Oh man, I thought I had my answer, but then you said Predator, and I'm not gonna lie, y'all. If you haven't seen Prey,
I was gonna say, Prey.
Oh, fuck.
So good.
There's a little bit of cheese for me in it, but in general, I'm like, this is great. They should continue doing these and just. I'm taking over. You. This is your story.
Okay, so this is what we get a native perspective, right? So it's like a
super cool
decolonized horror movie set in a time that is specifically defined by colonization. So that was awesome. That was fucking rad. Getting an insight into Comanche culture. That was just loved it. And alongside that, this idea that the predator is just this unstoppable force who is 3 steps ahead of you.
Yeah.
And they really brought us back to that terror of
Mhm.
the terror of being hunted. You're just
Yeah.
meat. And yeah, that wasn't, yeah, that might have to be my answer now. This is now sponsored by Prey. Everybody, you should go watch Prey on Hulu. Uh, it's actually
The
not
Hulu checks
super
are going to start
scary,
rolling in.
Yeah.
dude. You should. It's such a good movie.
Yeah.
And it's just like we have so few films centering Native people and Indigenous cultures. Like,
Mhm.
y'all watch the fuck out of that movie. It's so
Yeah.
good.
I want to say the craziest reference in that movie was when someone was handing off that old weapon, the old gun with the
Yeah, the Flintock pistol.
yeah. And that pistol is in Predator 2. That was a reference to
Oh,
Predator
cool.
2.
That's
It
rad.
is so rad. Isn't it when
Nice,
Danny
dude.
Glover's on the ship
Yep.
and he's looking? That was the same scene where we saw the xenomorph skull.
Yep.
Yep. And
Yeah.
just this idea that predators have been hunting or using the earth as a hunting. Oh, I want to see a samurai version.
Oh,
I
yeah.
wanna
I want to
s-
see everything now. I think
I want a medieval
they've
knights.
just cracked open this world
Yep.
to like expand the franchise in a really cool, interesting way. Like,
Yep.
which can be disconnected. Like, they don't need to be, they're just their own. It reminds me of comic books now. I feel like it's in that
Yeah.
state where it's like, what's the next volume? You know what I mean? Like, just keep
Yeah.
bringing it. So
Totally.
good.
Yeah.
John,
It's
what's
been
your
yeah, John, talk to us.
favorite?
Well, I was gonna say, and I forget his name. I just watched Elvis, and so his manager, who just
Tom
preys
Hanks.
on him, he's kind of a predator in a way.
Yeah.
And I wasn't gonna say this other one because I was a little bit nervous to talk about it because I feel like it might be a little bit controversial, especially among the design. I don't, maybe not amongst
Go
the
for
design
it.
community. But I was telling Brian earlier that last Saturday, and I've been working up to this day for a very
Oh,
long
got
time.
it. Got it.
I went
All right.
hunting for the first time.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
went wild pig hunting. A lot of people would say boar, but boar is the male, sow is the female. So it's feral pig or wild pig. We have a lot of them out here. They're technically an invasive species. They kind of tear apart a lot of the agriculture that we have out here. So, anyways, monster, because I think when you see some of those like boars that just get gnarly and they have these huge tusks and like they can be like kind of intimidating and kind of scary. I think that visual to me represented like the whole idea of like getting into it, and I was like not sure if I was going to talk about it, but you guys were talking about predator and hunting and I'm like, I just got to share.
You got
So I think it's an
before-
interesting discussion because I think for me, why I got into it,
there it is.
I was
Sure.
like anti-gun, like I think melt all the guns, like nothing, and just would have never thought of it. And then I started hearing about people that were hunters and started listening to like their stories, and I'm like, wow, this is totally different than what I thought like it was to be a hunter. I thought these were just people that just like didn't give a shit and they killed something, put it on the wall, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I started realizing and learning that like 99% of the people that hunt are like take it very seriously, and in most cases it's like pretty like spiritual and magical to them, and like they're doing it for the meat. There's actually like it's a very systematic thing that you enter into where like even the money that you pay into it when you're getting hunting licenses or tags for your animals or whatever, all that money goes into a system that is dedicated to conservation. And so it's interesting because I think the hunter, I think, is demonized as a monster in some ways. And that's, to my experience, it's like not the case. Like these people are actually like very serious about conservation because they know like even not just conserving the animals, but conserving the environment, because the number one killer of animals is the environment, not hunters. If you don't manage the environment right, and there's so much nuance in that, then these animals won't have a place to thrive. And so it's crazy to think, people who are like, oh, they don't care about the environment. These people actually really do. It's really important to them. And yeah, it was a pretty amazing experience going from like just like, no, I would never want to get into this, being curious, and then like learning each step of the way, doing like hunter safety course and learning how to shoot a rifle and like all this kind of stuff, and like taking these steps for like almost a year. And then last Saturday, I was able to harvest a wild pig, and my wife and I made tenderloin that night, and we have, some meat for a while now. So I don't know, it might be a little weird to bring up, but I think it's a good thing, because it's
invited.
Like, yeah, I am like, sure, most of the people that I work with in this industry like have no idea about this. So I kind of want it to be something people are a little bit more aware of, especially when it is in a place where it's a little bit unusual, because if you eat meat, it comes from somewhere.
It does.
So why not come from something that's sustainable? And you have to face like literally every step of the way. I'm going to save us all some gruesome details, but you have to like process it yourself. It's kind of crazy, like, exactly where it came from, and you were responsible for harvesting it yourself.
It's this idea of getting in touch with the food you're eating. Specifically, this applies to meat eaters, not vegetarians, not folks who are vegan.
Yeah, totally. If you
eat meat, if that's your choice, I'm a big meat eater, and I mean, I don't eat a lot of red meat, but I fucking love birds. I'll eat any bird. Get over here. You pigeon, get the fuck over here. Get over here. No,
he's like Brian's a cat. He's secretly
I don't eat pigeons. Did you know pigeons are actually quite beautiful under ultraviolet light? Okay, I'm going to say this, and then we're going to go back to the thing.
Yeah.
But there's a whole world in UV. So we don't see in the UV spectrum, but if you were to apply a UV light to a pigeon, you would see all these other like beautiful designs that we don't see, that other birds see. So like for those creatures that see in UV light, pigeons are actually quite beautiful.
Interesting.
Anyways, but I don't eat them anymore.
It's funny because on the flip side, like my wife and I, we fly fish up here, so it's
cool.
We don't catch, and I think we've only done it twice where we've caught a fish and like actually cooked it and eaten it.
That's awesome.
But majority of the time, it's actually catch and release.
Yeah.
So it's and that's very important for all the areas within just the fishing in general.
Totally.
And Brian, that just reminds me of like fish can also see in UV, and like there's type of flies that have UV coloring or how it's decorated, which is like insane on how technical you can get. So in just that atmosphere under the water. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, but Jon, there's this, and I have this as a mostly anti-gun leftist boy, but there's this image, right, of the hunter. It's this gun toting, has 17 assault rifles, and is shooting into the air, is like, get her done, and it's just like you have this image, but it's not really consistent with the actual ideology, which is it's getting in touch with your food. There's a sense of temperance there, where it's not like I'm not going to go kill a ton.
Yeah.
It's like preserving the environment. It's about getting in touch with your food. It's not the folks who are like big game hunters who are like, I'm going to go kill a lion or an endangered species and it's not what Jon's doing. Jon's not.
And all that stuff is regulated. So for the most part, anyone who is straying outside of that, they're doing something illegal. And that's something that most hunters are like, fuck those guys. Round them up and throw them in jail. Like that is like a big, I mean, you have hunters going after people like that, like trying to make sure they do like suffer the consequences, whether it's a citation or if it's straight up throw them in jail because they have like X amount of this, hanging on their wall that they didn't get any tags for, or they went outside. Like deer season is short. It's not very long, all this stuff is very heavily regulated, much like fishing, like it's got to be a certain weight or size or whatever, and you can only use this kind of hook or whatever. You can't use barbed hook if you're getting salmon, like stuff like that. So I think that's another thing people don't realize. There's all these regulations.
I am what they call a little bitch, And if I saw a boar in the wild, I would probably run and cry a little bit into my shirt. Boars are scary.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we don't need to keep talking about boars, but respect to their life, and I just hope they're having I hope they're not bored.
Nice. Yeah. My friend commented that on my post and he said, boring. And I wrote, it was so amazing. There it is.
We all need to be
for that.
shot. I'm kidding. So I feel like we're getting to the end here.
Sorry for taking over this monster talk, but I had a soapbox to climb onto.
I knew it was going to happen. It's one of the first things we talked about in our pre-meeting. You just like perked up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steven. I know we had a little hiccup at first, so thank you for your flexibility. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's great to connect with you again.
Thanks for having me.
Catch up.
It's really awesome to see like how all the different monsters of design that you're spinning up and seeing how this podcast is evolving. It's really awesome.
Yeah, man. I know it's funny. I posted like a Gollum meme the other day, and then someone commented on my friend AJ commented on there. And he's like, "Ooh, does that mean the monster is about making your designs precious?" I was like,
that's funny.
Or like your baby.
I like
that is a good monster.
Yeah,
no, that's not what it is.
Self-identification.
That's a great one, and it should look like Gollum. That's perfect. So, AJ, you're probably listening to this. Good idea.
Great idea.
Shouts to AJ.
Yeah.
Shouts to AJ.
AJ or Tia.
Anybody should wait. What am I saying? Oh, I'm hungry. Sorry. I got distracted.
All this talk about.
Yeah, I am. I'm hungry now. It's noon. Pop needs to eat some food. This episode has been sponsored by Prey and
Headspace
and boars.
Boars. And I don't think boars are sponsoring that.
Yeah.
No, there's a boar in like a tuxedo.
The boars are going to protest this episode. That's what's happen.
The boars are asking for their 15%.
Where can people find you?
Oh yeah,
they want to look at your work or kind of see what you've been up to.
Totally. I actually pulled down my site recently, but I'm sure I'll put that back up and share my at least professional work, but my more personal artwork, you can find me at Theater of the Absurd.
Oh my God, we didn't even talk about your art.
I
have so many.
Probably can't see it because it's out of frame here. Because I think the way we crop this is tight. But there's a skateboard hanging behind me, back here to the left, and it's from a short film I did like 12 years ago, or something crazy. And Steven painted it, and it's a zombie. I'll post it on Instagram too.
Oh my God,
beautiful piece of art that it's been on my wall forever. Since he painted it, so I love it.
Okay, there was a whole conversation. We can do this another time. There was just this whole idea around. Now you know what? I'm not even going to fucking open that box. Okay.
The point is, Steven is also a very, very talented artist. I've been to your art shows in the past.
Wait, it's Theater of the Art, you said?
Absurd.
Theater of the Absurd.
Yeah. And that's at Theater of the Absurd? Is there like a...
Yep. It's like theater.of.the.absurd.
Gotcha. Okay.
The worst name.
No, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Cool. We'll post that link too. And we share it out.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sweet.
All right. Steven. Many blessings.